Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I'm the CEO of Aegis Biz Tech in Tallahassee, Florida. And today we are honored to have Bennett Napier, President and CEO of Partners in Association Management, here in the studio. We're going to talk about your career, music, and lots of other exciting things here in Tallahassee, Florida. For your cyber tip today, let's be on the lookout not just for phone calls, texts, emails that look suspicious, but let's add Teams messaging to the list of things that hackers may try to use against you. Always remember, our communication tools have been turned against us by hackers. That makes the threat landscape tough to navigate, but it's important to think about it in those terms. If you see a Teams message outside of your company that looks suspicious, don't react, don't click, don't engage without talking to your IT professional or verifying who it is and what they want to talk about. That's it for your cyber tip today. Let's dive right in. Bennett, tell us what's going on. Introduce yourself.
Good morning.
And thank you for being on the show.
You don't want to talk about football already today?
Oh, no.
Okay. We can skip that.
We can skip football for today.
All right.
So tell us what you guys are doing at Partners in Association Management, and we'll start from there.
Sure. Thanks, Blake. It's a very honor to be here and look forward to our conversation. But we're obviously been a long-time customer of Aegis as well, so we're grateful to have that relationship. But
thank you for that.
Our firm is an association management company. I think the easiest way I always explain it is kind of like staff leasing for associations. So as opposed to them having W-2 employees that manage their day-to-day operations, that's what we do. They just contract with a company to become their headquarters. So somebody on our team is the CEO or executive director of our clients, and then we do every other function, that an association needs to deliver: meetings and events, continuing education, those types of things, for a variety of associations, mostly national now in terms of scope.
That's outstanding.
It's fun. It keeps us busy.
And what milestone are you all at?
We're on equal footing with you. I founded in 97, changed the name to Partners in 98, but technically 97, yeah.
I thought we were both in the 25-year, about to hit 30 club.
Yep.
Congratulations on that run.
It's been a journey.
So what's a day in the life? You said pre-show that a lot of traveling's coming up. Walk us through a day in the life in your shoes.
For me, it's kind of a cycle. Given our client mix, I have one very large national association I do a lot of work with and one statewide association. We've got about 22 association clients. And I don't work on them all day to day as far as myself. Our teams are kind of broken up into client management teams. But so part of the year I'm doing public speaking, kind of state of the industry stuff, a lot of regulatory affairs, and then a lot of writing, a lot of research, kind of presenting kind of proposals and policy initiatives to our board of directors for strategic planning type initiatives and that kind of stuff. So it's pretty fun, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So looking at almost 30 years in business, what's been a proudest moment that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm trying to compete with you, but we're close. We're close. But I mean, we've been on that best companies to work for list for a long time. It's our 13th year this year, and 2011 was our first year getting on that list, and I think it was a big deal, certainly the first time, and then we kind of committed to each other, like, can we sustain it? Because you can do it once, but can you keep it going, with different people coming into the company, culture changes, that kind of thing. And so that's something I think for us, it's just not only hitting it once, just keeping it going, because you can let up and just kind of fall backwards. And we just try not to take it for granted. So I think that's certainly our milestone for us.
Well, you and Capital City Bank here in the community were my inspiration to first do the paperwork for that milestone. So thank you for being a trendsetter in that space. And you're right, it's a great gut check if you go through that exercise with Florida Trend to, see what boxes you're checking.
Right.
And a good reminder to make sure you're doing everything you can do for your staff and appreciate that influence. So if you could time travel, where would you go?
It's going to be music. No surprise to you, probably. We've talked about music over the years. But I would be a 1980s Sunset Strip, 100%. That's where I would go. I would be living at the Rainbow Bar and Grill every day. Orgazares or something, Troubadour, whiskey, pretty much going up and down the Strip every day.
And walking up the hill.
No talent. I would just be, watching and being in the audience. But, no talent. But some of those people didn't have talent, but they had a good look. So that might work to my favor.
Walk up the hill to the Motley Crue apartment?
Yeah. Well, walk, and I'm not sure I would walk back. But yes, that would be pretty fun.
Did you ever see the Motley Crue movie?
I did. The Dirt, yeah. I wouldn't advise it for kids, but yes, 100%. The book was good. The movie
definitely not
was
a family-friendly film.
No, it is not.
Let's talk about books. What are you reading in 2025?
It's not a new book, but it's kind of, for me, I've got finished up a grad program actually in national security. So it's my last class this year, or this fall. So it's actually one of the key books is Diplomacy by Henry Kissinger. And it's a pretty big book. So it pretty much goes all the way back to the revolution and pre-revolution, all the way up past 9/11. So it's kind of interesting, kind of his analysis of each of those stages of the U.S. and how we perform diplomacy. So it's, and obviously how, it's negotiation, it's achieving objectives. So in that arena was different, but I mean, you can definitely apply some of that stuff to business too. So it's a good read.
Oh yeah, international relations is fascinating.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I cleaned out my library at home and brought a bunch of the books to the office, which I put in the lobby as like a take one if you want kind of thing for the staff. And most of them have just sat there. But I had this book called The Politics of Diplomacy by James Baker.
Yep.
And one of our interns, Sophia, asked if she could borrow it the other day. And it's a long read, and she said it was fascinating. I haven't looked at it in years. That's very interesting. Yeah. So along those same lines, what's the best book you've ever read?
I mean, I'd say business-wise, I mean, I do fiction and nonfiction, but for me, I think E-Myth is probably like one of my favorites, just, not only for myself, but just in talking to other business owners, just the principles behind, working on the business, not just in the business. And then kind of the local flair, Doug Tatum's book, No Man's Land, that's been a good one. I share that with a lot of business owners too. Just you don't have to, you can be what he calls a small giant. Right. And that's helpful. I think, most businesses are small and never going to be, going to, on Wall Street, if you will. So I think that's important, kind of where you can fit in the mix and still be successful. So that's a good one that I use a lot.
Yeah, we've been passing around Clarity Principles around the office by Mike Dennison. Great read. Very good look at scale and sustainability. And he's here in Tallahassee. So that's been great having him as a resource. So speaking of Tallahassee, why Tallahassee? What's your background? Where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? And how did you make the decision to call Tallahassee home for yourself and your business?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in North Carolina. And, before I got here, I was in D.C. a little while, Atlanta. And then I had two friends from North Carolina that came here to get their doctorate in sociology at FSU. And I was at Georgia Tech at the time, and I would come down here on weekends and visit them. So I'd never been to Tallahassee before. Certainly knew the Seminoles just from the 80s and TV and stuff like that, but never been here, and then came to visit them. They ended up moving back. One's in Atlanta, one's in North Carolina, but I stayed. And it was a good move for a lot of reasons, professionally and personally. So I've enjoyed it. It's been a great ride. So I got here right at the peak of, the Seminoles and the dynasty. So it was really fun to be here at that point, and then watch the transformation of our town. So.
Nice. What years were you in Atlanta?
90, 91. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So we got the Braves there, and then came down here in 92. Yeah.
Yeah, those were great years. I started my career in Atlanta right after the Olympics when they had Atlanta just immaculate. Yeah. Everywhere you went.
Yeah.
And the Tabernacle was just built downtown, which was a House of Blues originally, which a lot of people don't know. But just wonderful to be in Atlanta.
It was good as a young person at that point. It was a crazy place, but it was fun.
And almost like clockwork, when I hit 29, I was like, I need to get out of this town.
Yeah.
It's time to move elsewhere. So how about mentors? Are you a mentor to others in the association space? Do you still have a mentor?
Yeah. I mean, I've done it. I've done some on both sides of the table. I mean, I think it's just good, to do that and give back. Some of it's been kind of formal, some informal over the years, but, I think the more you can share with people, you learn from them as much as, you're getting from them. So I think locally, Judy Gray, she's in town, but she was actually CEO of the Florida Society of Association Executives, and I was board chair with her. But kind of post me being in that role where kind of the roles were reversed, she had just a very accomplished business nonprofit background before and still after. So I can rely on her, just kind of that no judgment zone, but a lot of just good counsel, just a good sounding board. So still, even to this day, work with her. And that was probably over 20 years ago where I was working with her in a business standpoint. So we still keep that relationship. So it's been that. So that's been a really good one.
Yeah, that's huge when you can have that consistent voice. Yeah. Over 5-10 years, especially the past 10 years with all the revolutions that we've seen in the business space, especially in IT, from the cloud revolution to the current AI revolution to the mobile revolution, the social revolution. Someone like, for me, Steve Evans, who introduced me to Aegis 20 years ago, and I still keep in touch with today. So here, I
Yeah.
agree. Being a mentor and still having a mentor in your world is great. So you mentioned service. Let's talk about community service. Obviously, Tallahassee doesn't function without people being able to serve outside of whatever their profession is. Any charitable organizations or board service or volunteerism in general that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the chamber board for a while, a number of years, and
I just
headed up-
started
yeah,
my service
headed
with the
up on
chamber
the
board.
membership committee for a while, and that was really rewarding. Just seeing, all the impact that they have that happens every day that we just kind of take for granted in some cases. But the last 9 years, been on the Big Bend Hospice Board. So we've got a foundation board and an operating board. And the operating board focuses kind of more on the business units, if you will, and it's, we're kind of going through now just a strategic planning, outcomes of, that we've been building for a number of years and kind of seeing the fruition of that we call it now kind of beyond hospice. That it's not just hospice. There's a lot of other elements that we bring to the table, but, we're expanding to other counties across Northwest Florida. Obviously, we've got a nice strategic partnerships with TMH. And so a lot of things have happened in the last 3 or 4 years. And I think our brand is community awareness of what we actually do, is much better in terms of, exposure and awareness. And that's been really neat to see that come to fruition.
Well, thank you for your service and for the noble work that Big Bend Hospice does in our region. It's huge.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anyone listening that wouldn't have some sort of experience that they could relate to from that organization.
Yeah.
Excellent. Significant event in your life. If you had to name one, what would you choose?
Yeah, I guess, there's a lot. I mean, obviously people call it kids and marriages and all those type of things. I think if I go back in time, I mean, certainly moving to Tallahassee, like I said, never been to Tallahassee before, had 2 great friends that moved here and I followed them, but I would, may have never started the company, and if I hadn't done that. So I think that I have to put that in the mix, just because of how significant it is in terms of my professional career and kind of what's happened after that. So I'd have to put that up there at the list. Not that personal stuff's not important, it is, but that certainly was the clearly turning point for me, being here and having the opportunity to start a company here.
So in the spirit of entrepreneurship, what was that moment where you said, I'm going to start my own business? Were you working elsewhere, I assume?
Yeah, it's kind of like I had an opportunity with one association and said, can we bring you on? And I said, we'll do it as long as it's not exclusive. And so, I had to make a choice. Do I want to just be a CEO of what we call them a captive association, or do I want to say, I'll do it, but I'm going to have the ability to grow this? And they were willing to do that. They're still a client. So that's, it was a big deal for them to be agreeable to that and for me to take that risk and making the ask. Could have just been easy to say, I'll take that job and going to take it. My career and path might have been different if I hadn't done that and made that choice. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And for those listening that might not know much about the association world, obviously I've worked in that space for 20 years. What do you do for an association? You're talking about event planning and digital marketing. What else?
I mean,
what services?
Whatever their mission is what we're doing. So most of our groups are trade associations, but we have standalone certification bodies. So we're doing everything from testing and administration and exam development for a variety of professions and industries and setting standards, even facility standards. So it's really kind of comes with whatever their mission is what we're doing. But at the kind of operational level for me, aside from my corporate role as a CEO, my hat as a client CEO is really strategic planning, managing the board of directors and their initiatives and making sure that we execute on the strategic plan, whatever that is. And just working with our team. We've got a great team of talented people executing day to day. But meetings and events come in the mix. We put on probably 90 meetings a year. Probably I'd say the largest meetings about 2,000 people every year in Myrtle Beach is our largest event with about 200 exhibitors. But we're, there's some weeks we'll have staff in like 8 different cities, putting on just different conferences for different client organizations. So it's kind of neat to see us be able to pull that off,
Right.
that have that many people out in the field in one time, we just don't, just doesn't blow up, that that can pull that off. And we do that routinely. And when we first started doing that, it was kind of like, how are we going to do this? And now it's kind of like, okay, we've got it down to a system and we can do it. And it's not as stressful as it used to be when we first tried to figure out, can we do this?
I bet.
Yeah.
So what was your first job?
Pharmacy. Yeah, I started working when I was 14. It was what we call a community pharmacy. Some of those are still around, but
Sure.
I worked there pretty much from freshman to senior year in high school. And actually, one of my friends, my mom and her mom were really good friends, and she and I worked 4 years together at that pharmacy, probably 15, 20 hours a week, all the way through high school. So it was, and she ended up, even after coming out, she went to college and even went back after college for a little while to work there. It was kind of interesting to see that happen. But yeah, that was a really cool job, at the time. And you knew everybody. It was a small kind of town between Greensboro and
Right.
High Point, North Carolina. And so it was a good first job for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and people forget the pharmacy. I mean, going back before our time, I mean, that was the convenience store.
Oh yeah, ice
That
cream. We had
was
the ice cream, soda
that was the
fountain, and everything.
restaurant. That
Yeah.
was the entertainment hub for a small town. The
Oh, yeah,
pharmacy
for
was
sure.
it. There was one in Dothan where I grew up called North Cuts, which somehow evolved into like the boutique of like wedding gifts.
Yeah.
They dropped North Cuts Pharmacy is now just North Cuts. But it's interesting to think about that from a historical perspective. All right, let's shift gears. First, our segue question into phase 2 of our discussion. UFOs, yes or no?
Yes, 100%.
100%. And you base that on what fact?
A little bit of gut, a little bit of science, but I kind of have a pretty open mind. There's things we'll just never be able to explain. So, 100% believe it. Believe in ghosts too. Yeah.
I agree with you on both fronts. The universe is too big
Yeah.
for us to be alone in it. And, when I watch Ancient Aliens or some show like that, and they throw the pyramids in South America and in the Middle East,
Yeah.
how is that possible without some sort of, influence from elsewhere?
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, so that sets the tone for phase 2. So we talked about Motley Crue. Excellent band. When I was at the Capitol Records building during my run in the music business, we had to do an exercise with the president of the label. Andy Slater was the president at that time, and he was like, name your favorite band. And the artist I was with, they would lean towards U2 and things like that. And I was torn between the Allman Brothers and Motley Crue. But here I am in Los Angeles at the corner of Capitol and Vine, right down the road from the Sunset Strip. I was like, well, guys, I got to be honest. It's Motley Crue. I'm afraid of a little, metal shaming, but but Slater was fascinated by the answer because of, their history. That label, they had Megadeth on the label and Great White and, a few other bands from that time. But fascinating exploration, music. What would be the go-to favorite album
Oh, wow. Yeah.
of all time?
I know
if you had to pick one.
Yeah, I know you've talked about Ozzy on some of your podcasts. I mean, for me, even though it's obviously this summer, we know Ozzy passed away, but I just, but Black Sabbath, the first Black Sabbath, I'm really big fan of Metallica and all the new wave of British heavy metal and even hair metal. I like metal, period. So I don't get hung up on, or hair metal bad, good. That's just music to me, and I like the music. So, but Black Sabbath, the first one for sure, because for me that set the stage for everybody else. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch the series that the gentleman that did Flight 666?
Yeah,
His
100%. Yep.
genre by genre.
Yep.
What was it called? Metal Evolution?
Yeah, metal evolution. Yeah, he got his PhD and doing his thesis on the evolution of heavy metal, which I was like, I should have done that. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
The new wave of
yeah,
British heavy
yeah,
metal. I
yeah.
never thought about it in those terms. Have you seen Iron Maiden in concert?
About 6 times. Yeah,
6 times?
Yeah.
During what
Yeah,
eras?
I think I think my first one was 1987, so it was somewhere in time. And so I grew up in North Carolina, Greensboro Coliseum, which obviously most people know ACC basketball. That's where that was. But Greensboro and Charlotte, they're basically an hour and a half apart. So either of those cities, we had just every band imaginable in the 80s coming through. So in high school, it was like it was Mecca really for music and so I saw that. That was my first one to see an Iron Maiden. But that stage show was just never seen anything like that. I mean, they were the ones that kind of set the tone for that just massive. Kiss had it obviously, but different. But when you had the Eddie come out on stage, and that's just, it's just really just totally different experience.
Yeah, fast forward 2 years later, I was in Houston, Texas with my dad. He lived there, and Iron Maiden was touring the nation on the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour with Frehley's Comets opening up.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed because Guns N' Roses was opening just a couple of weeks before, but they went on to do their own thing. And Frehley's Comet was opening. I said, Dad, can I go to the show? And my friends in Houston weren't available. He's like, sure, I'll take you to see Iron Maiden, which my dad was listening at that time to John Cougar and Steve Miller, and definitely not Iron Maiden.
No, it's different. It's not for everybody. Yeah.
And Frehley's Comets came on. He's like, well, this isn't that bad. Back in the New York groove, songs like that. And Iron Maiden came on. And that tour, similar to the Somewhere in Time tour, just massive stage show and special effects that Steve Harris and company have really made, a huge part of their world as that band. But I was just blown away. And I snuck a Walkman in that you could record with and try to do a bootleg. That didn't turn out so good. But what an amazing band. What a great show. Taking that question a little bit further, I've seen in some pictures you've met a few of these artists. Who would you say was the coolest band or individual in a band that you've had a chance to meet?
Yeah, I mean, I had privilege. I had a friend that got involved in the music industry that I met at a music festival, and she and her husband kind of worked for Live Nation, and then they started their own kind of production thing. So, I kind of followed her to different festivals over the years for about 8 years. So that helped, getting some of that, opportunities to do that. But I mean, every one of them's been just gracious. I mean, you've got the persona, and you say, well, do they have ego, or what you see in the media? But met Ozzy, and Alice Cooper, Gene Simmons. I mean, I know he's controversial based on he's just got a big ego, but he was just the most gracious kind of person, to talk to, and just humble, and that was pretty neat to see that, because you only see what you see, and seeing them as people is kind of neat to see that too.
I agree.
Yeah.
We were at a cigar club in Beverly Hills during that same period of the Name Your Favorite Band exercise. And the A&R guy at Capitol, Steve Schnurr, he had a membership at this club, and you had Jeff Goldblum playing in the corner with his little jazz quartet, which he pointed out like hours in, like, that's The Fly playing drums. We're like, what? Yeah. How cool is that? And you have Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell at the bar, Michael Anthony Hall sitting over. We were kind of getting a little starstruck, like, how cool is this? And then I look over, and Vince Neil is sitting next to us with a couple very normal-looking individuals. And he's wearing a sweater, and like a nice watch, and not what you would think. Yeah. You think they walk around in their stage gear if you don't give it some thought or you haven't met them. And it's Monday Night Football, and they were giving away cigars. So I saw him get to the table, and this club had a no camera policy and that sort of thing. This is right around the beginning of the mobile revolution. But I just bumped up. I was like, hey, man, how you doing? Tried not to be starstruck. Didn't call him by name. Yep. He's like, oh, man, I love this place. So cool. You can smoke inside, great TVs. I was like, yeah, I agree, blah, blah, blah. We just talked sports for a couple minutes, and very cool, because Vince gets a bad rap in a lot of ways, but it's really neat to see him as just an individual, just another guy out at the sports bar. Yep. Granted, a very nice sports bar in Beverly Hills. But let's shift gears a little bit. You said you actually brought something to the show today?
Well, I believe, part of our conversation, I thought it would gravitate towards music. So I was like, well, I'm going to go back in time and give you a little flashback as a gift for you. And, randomly, I was like, well, I'm going to go back and say this, pretty cool hit parader. I mean, I used to read Circus and Cream and Hit Parader in the day when we were, mailing cassettes back and forth and doing trading.
Don't forget Metal Edge.
Yeah. So, but I thought it's like you would appreciate that. Not many people will, but hopefully you would. Yeah.
Put it there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. This is outstanding. I read Circus Magazine, Metal Edge, Hit Parader. I had a Rolling Stone subscription too, and just following the tours. And it doesn't seem, you get older, you see things differently, but the cycle of record and tour and streaming's obviously changed so much. Rock and metal's not as big as it used to be in some ways with new bands, but bands like Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, I mean, they're doing more tickets than they've ever done. Yeah. So that's very cool. But this is very thoughtful. Thank you very much. And I saw this tour. For those watching and listening, you've got Axl and James from Guns N' Roses and Metallica. This tour came through St. Pete back in '91, and I saw that show with my friend Ron LaFace, and just amazing performance. Guns N' Roses was supporting Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. Metallica had the Black album out, I guess?
Yeah, right then. Yeah, should have been, yeah.
it's just two bands at their peak.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get to see that
Yeah.
often. We saw that. Wonderful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Greatest American. Looking back on our country, what, 250 years now? Who would you say is the greatest American?
It's hard for me. I mean, I'm a student of history. Do a lot of, academically did a lot of public policy is my background in terms of academics. And so I've looked at obviously public policy officials, presidents, that kind of stuff. But obviously as a business leader, there's so many. I think it's, if I picked one, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Reagan. Just because one, I grew up, during the Reaganomics, and not that was popular, but just his, the great communicators. That's the piece, like that moment in time. Having the right person at the right time. Take the policy stuff aside. How he made the country feel, and just the elements of certainly. I think trying to move the American ideal forward in a good way, positive way. I think that's for me. That's what would be lasting. Just because I grew up and I saw it and felt it, and even looking at going back, all the different presidents we could look at. I think I think because of his background as an actor, probably got people kind of looked at him differently. Said was he qualified to do this, but he really was his own. He was a student of history too, and did his homework. And a lot of people think, if you don't do your homework about what he really did and how he made his decisions, he was a pretty smart guy. So I kind of got past the surface level and said, I want to look at him more closely. And even more impressed me, kind of what he was able to do, given what was all going on in the world. It was pretty impressive. So
yeah, as a little kid in Dothan, Alabama, I can agree with everything you said. The vibe of America just seemed very positive, and the world, as it always is, was very turbulent, but there seemed to be a bubble in our little world here in the South, and the president was certainly a big part of that. So before we close today, we got to talk about TV. I'm watching some ridiculous television. I think my TV watching as of 2020, as a lot of Americans, and throughout the world, we saw binge watching. Yeah. Really hit home. Well, what are you watching right now on television?
Pretty eclectic. But I mean, right now, is I'm waiting for the next season, or I guess it may be. Well, I don't know if it'll be the final, but it probably will be of Jack Ryan. That will be one. But Homeland for sure was like one of my.
They're going to make another Jack Ryan.
It releases in October. Yeah, coming out in
thought
October.
That was done.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it's mid-October releases.
Jim Halpert as an action star, I didn't think that was possible, but that show is so well done.
Yeah, but because of my, just interest in public policy and foreign policy, Diplomat's coming out. That's been a good series. So that's where I gravitate. Anything espionage related, or this kind of mixes foreign policy and espionage is fun.
Did you check out The Night Agent?
Yeah, that was a great one. I loved it.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
very well done.
It was well done. Yeah.
Outstanding. So how can people reach out to you? Are you out there on social media, PIM website?
Yeah, it's our website's partnersinassociationmanagement.com, so pretty simple. And, I do a lot on LinkedIn. The Facebook stuff I do primarily is the personal side, not professional, although I mix a little bit of that. But LinkedIn is where we kind of house our professional stuff. And, we have pretty good presence. Like I said, most of our client base is national now, but it's as we've grown outside of kind of the Tallahassee community, it's been nice to see that we get the kind of referral business is kind of where we put most of our business, and we do marketing, but it's kind of targeted marketing, but we have our presence out there, and part of our kind of brand, I think, is also trying to help just people understand association management and not-for-profit association management, and giving tools for people, whether it's their client or not, how are some best practices. So we have some of those things on resources on our website.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you for the thoughtful gift. I will have to flip through that this evening. Thank you for the service to our community with Big Bend Hospice, with the Tallahassee Chamber, with the Florida Society of Association Executives, which, if anyone out there doesn't know who and what they are the Association of Associations. That's always how I train our new salespeople. Who's FSAE? But all these organizations are a wonderful part of our community, including almost 30 years of Partners in Association Management. So congratulations on that run, on the Florida Trend successes, and on having an outstanding brand in our community. Appreciate you sharing those music stories with us today. And remember, for everyone out there, cyber awareness. Teams messages, emails, phone calls. Don't forget, phone numbers can be spoofed. Just because caller ID says it's the Department of Homeland Security does not mean it's the Department of Homeland Security. Trust no one, as Fox Mulder says. It's great IT advice. Contact your IT professional for questions. Thank you, Bennett, for joining us today. Thank you to our production partners, Josh and Gabby from Level Up and CB at Charlie Bravo Productions. We are here in the Biz and Tech studio. I'm Blake Dowling, CEO of Aegis Biz Tech, and we will see you next time as we welcome Jay Smith with Ajax Construction. And that's it. Tallahassee, the South, the nation, and to our 4 listeners in Japan. That's right. Spotify Analytics. I'm watching you, Japan. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. Have an awesome day. We'll see you next time.